Good morning, everyone. Um, so, what I would like to do now is to speak more in a more concrete way regarding my um, my conclusions, even perhaps only temporary or tentative conclusions, but yet I do have several conclusions regarding the issue of living environments. I mean, I've spoken until now. I mean, just in general terms, and I've tried to categorize, subcategorize the different environments, and also to explain. I mean, why there should be different categories, but I didn't speak about, I mean, each category in specific terms, and I would like to do it now. I would say that, I mean, I feel some kind of like urgency in the air. Some would even go as far as to speak about alien invasion, and to me, the issue of alien invasion is funny. I mean, what does it even mean, alien invasion? I mean, the concept is barbaric. The concept of ships that that arrive on the shore of a place, like the Greek ships that arrive like on the beach of Troy and laying siege. So it's kind of a barbaric concept. I mean, and if you see some kind of resemblance in the situation right now to this concept, you should understand that the resemblance is there. It's not only in your minds, of course, but it's there because you need this to happen. I mean, you need this kind of you have strong imagery, barbaric images in your mind that, I mean, that without like seeing those specific images, I mean, you wouldn't change like your ways at all. I mean, you would keep like, I mean, that's what I mean. De facto, that's what happened. I mean, you have to see these kind of like modern mythologies of alien invasion in your eyes. I mean, modern, but of course it lies. I mean, it stands on like archaic concept, like as I said, barbaric concepts. Just so you will, I mean, wake up, because otherwise, just I mean, the murder, the genocide, the exenocide, the rape, the murder, the theft, just continues on, and nothing changes. So you need those images, but so because you need those images, I mean, so the so-called aliens are supplying those images to you. They are making a show, and I've already said it a couple of times that they are putting a show for you because you require this show, because you are barbaric. And this is also true for me, that a lot of what I do, I mean, it's kind of a show. I mean, like in last, I mean, at least 2 years, maybe even more. It's not in a way that it's not meaningful. It is meaningful, but I've said it many times. All prophets that were sent to humanity were in the show business, in a way that they I mean, they had to show all the time. They can't. I mean, it's a known like adage, like a common saying in literary criticism, and also it's also true about movie criticism, film criticism, that you have to show, not tell. Don't tell, show. But this is the prophet should tell, and also in addition show. Like, I mean, they have to do all sort of like art and like theater and dramatic presentations, and they should incorporate it into their own like personality, or at least public persona. And I've understood it during the last, I mean, 3 years, and during the last at least 2 years. I mean, that's part of what I do, is to hold a show. And it's not necessarily my character. I mean, up until then, was never like a person that, I mean, I like to speak, like in general, and to write, but I wouldn't say that up until that point I was characterized in any way by like being like a person that likes to present drama and to put on a show. No, actually not at all. But I mean, I understood that it's part of the job. I mean, and after the kuche berichu, it's like, I'm the servant of the Lord. I mean, so part of what you do as the servant of the Lord is that you need to put on a show, because the audience is barbaric as it today as it is always have been, and possibly even more than ever. And they require the show. So what you see now is part of the show. In reality, the aliens were always here. I mean, what? All of you. I mean, history is as defined by humans is the the duration of time or the era where humans could have. I mean, they wrote something, and of course that, I mean, the alien are in contact with this. I mean, the so-called aliens are in contact with the humanity long before that, and of course that, I mean, they were involved in every like important human text that was ever written, and for any culture. So so by definition, they are part of the East. They are, I mean, very important part of history, in a way that they are part of what, I mean, the important texts. And history is defined by the texts. I mean, the way that, I mean, by the era of the text. Now, before that, they also intervened in human affairs. I mean, because so it's kind of like too late by many thousands of years. I mean, to speak about alien invasion. It's like they've invaded. I mean, many thousands years ago. And of course, what is, I mean, invaded? They did not really invade, because they were always here, and this is not the first. And I mean, the current civilization of humanity is not the first civilization of humans, even in Earth. So the whole idea is very barbaric, and it is required just I mean, because you need a show. You need the show. That's all. But it's not that they come and go, or they came from somewhere to some place. It's the whole notion of just the physicality of the issue is barbaric. Sometimes it's much wiser and even much more like it represents reality much better, and to speak about reality using a religious concept rather than physical, like scientific or pseudo scientific concept, because if the science that you have in your possession, like the natural knowledge, is so limited with regards to what you want to describe, then using the language of science is just, I mean, it's just creating an illusion, or like a modern mythology. While perhaps, I mean, if you use the correct, or you choose wisely the religious, I mean, representation of things that happen, if you understand what's happening, and you choose the correct religious term to describe it, in a way you represent reality much better, because I mean, you relinquish, I mean, your aspirations of understanding the physical issues, that, I mean, the physical aspect of the issue, and you also admit that it doesn't really matter that much. What matters is the ethical drama that takes place. Drama not in a way that it's fake, but in a way that it's I mean, things, I mean, are happening to people, and so yes, humanity has sinned and is invested very deeply in the sin of genocide and xenocide, of murder and of rape, and of slavery, and stealing children, cannibalism, forcing women to carry children that are not their own. So many things that are, I mean, and for you, instead of trying to foolishly understand the situation in physical terms, which is something that you cannot do and will not help you, it's much wiser to understand it with religious terms, the terms of like that they are known to much of humankind. The terms of sin, the terms of, repentance or punishment or, end of day, judgment day, all these terms represent reality and will cause you to understand reality and to choose the correct method of dealing with reality in a much better way than trying hopelessly to describe the new phenomenon that you just see using scientific terms that are completely retarded. With regards to the natures of the phenomenon, the new phenomenon. Okay, so let's speak a little bit about the neros. So again, I should say and elaborate on something that there were two amazing things that I understood regarding the neros, the nanobots, and one is the fact that they communicate with each other, and the second very important and amazing fact is that, which I've also mentioned several times, is the fact that they have they possess symbolic thought and they possess symbolic language, which is amazing because it actually, it makes them, as I said, a civilization of their own, and our communication with them, a contact between civilizations. Now you might say, but wait, why is it a surprise to you? But you said that your art is heavily influenced by a symbolic language that you try to gradually understand for more than a year now, and you spoke about it. As you said, and of course, many painted and created sculptures. So. And it's much of it is revolves around symbolic language. So why is it surprised you that the neros understand symbolic, that they possess the concept of symbolic language? So the answer is that I will remind you that when I thought about neros, mostly I thought about spaceships and the curses, like the plagues of mankind are all of them up until very late, last week or 2 weeks, they were all in my mind, curses that God is placing upon Earth or other places, and the spaceships are manifestation of, as I said, manifestation of God's will in our universe, within the laws of nature and behavior of consciousness beings. I did not of course I've speculated about the existence of the nanobots more than 3 years ago. I've written about it, and I also and I played on the ambiguity of this a little bit, more than a bit. In my series of paintings that I call the Titanomachy. I don't know. I don't know how to say it in English. Titanomachia in Hebrew. Couple of this series of the paintings of this series are actually hanged right now. In Sbaranguni right now. I refer to the paintings that take place in space and like with black background. When you see Earth, sometimes you see the sun, sometimes you see other planets, sometimes you see the moon, but you see like entities that are painted using two circles that are placed like one above the other, and some of them are sending rays or flames towards Earth and attacking Earth. And I have several of those, and sometimes there is only one of them, big one, and many or black and white and color. There are several variations of this, also in acrylic and in oil. So I played a little bit on them. As I said, I mean, originally, like my first intention was to make it a space, like a space scene, and this was the main intention. I mean, it was always stayed the main intention, but I have understood pretty early that that this could also, represent something that happens to very small creatures. And I've mentioned that I spoke about it even several months ago. I mean, and so the ambiguity is not very different, but only just like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I've started to understand that the causes could be carried away by the neurons that are inside the bodies, and then I've added the new stuff, which is the new element of the causes is the one is the one that represented by the blood. The blood, there is like red red base that is made of clay. There are two of these, of course. One with oil paintings, one with acrylics, and on the red base there is like a neo or a red blood cell or white blood cell. So this is the nucleus that I designed, or I invented, following the developments that you were, my YouTube subscribers were the witness that just with me, because I reported it, just when I discovered that that yes, we can see neos, and we can on the body, and we can even see the workings, and the whole line of research, which is the new one, led me to this kind of new case. But up until that, and during the last year or more than a year, the cases were and in my mind they were carried away by the spaceships, and not by the creatures in the body. Again, I understood that there is some kind of ambiguity between them, and that's why I've used the same name to describe them. And it's not new. It's like that. Doing like more than a year that I speak and the podcast and Twitter, and it's clear that there is there is a deliberate ambiguity between them. It's not, as I said, it's not the only occurrence where in my writings and in my podcast I use deliberate ambiguity, and maybe the most common term is that I use in my own idiosyncratic way is Titan. Like what exactly is Titan? So it's not exactly Venusian, because otherwise that's why I would have called it Venusian. So it's something it has a couple of different meaning. I also speculated that there is kind of like a visual resemblance between the spaceships and the nanobots, but I actually never knew what. I didn't really have a clue how the nanobots look, and I had a much better clue how the spaceship look, which is funny because I've never seen the spaceship in my life, and the nanobots I've actually seen them pretty lately. Only during the last, couple of weeks with you, but still, I've seen the nanobots, and it's funny because I never had any idea how they look. I just in a very hypothetical, like a very long shot, like a very unbased or not based enough idea that they might look similar. So let's speak a little bit about the neurons in the body. I think that one of the things about him that really, hindered me or failed me, in the beginning to understand like few practical issues that with regards to the neos is that, I correctly assume that they can both create life and they 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 create stuff like sculptures and paintings, and they can make things like make objects or design, construct objects, even complicated objects. And this is true. This is absolutely true. And it's an old hypothesis, and it was proved to be true. But I think, even though I'm not sure, I think that this correct assumption led me to some incorrect and even maybe misleading thoughts, misleading implications. For example, I thought that it is, and I've spoken about it quite a bit during the last couple of weeks, that the neos can, for example, paint a fly when they know what's a fly, when they have given a sample of a fly, and then can also create a sculpture of a fly. And eventually, given enough time and conditions that, I wasn't aware of what kind of condition, they can even revive it. And I'm not sure it's true. I suspect it's not true now, even though it was my thought for quite some time. But I think that, I was too much invested on human mythology, like Pygmalion, the artist that they create sculptures of a woman and falls in love with the woman, and then eventually the gods are making him, like doing him a favor and actually making the sculpture just become like a real woman. And this is a very known myth, and some other variation of this myth exists in other cultures besides the Greek one, and I was too, familiar with it, and now I think that it's kind of unreasonable. Perhaps it's true. Perhaps they can do like such a thing, create a sculpture of a fly and actually revive it. But I'm not sure at all that they can actually do it. I think that this is unbased, and again, what led me to this error was the correct assumption that they can do both, both create life and create sculptures, and plus the mythology of the Pygmalion style mythology. What I think now, which is more reasonable, and also based on facts. And many experiments that were accumulated to several, at least tentative conclusion. What I think now is that they just, they do different things. They can do different things. And also, to add another thing that led me to the error, it was. Then initially, I didn't understand those creatures, neos, as creatures that possess symbolic language, and that's why the lack of symbolic language led me to misunderstand many of the things that they do and can do. For example, the idea, the hypothetical idea of reviving a sculpture is something that stems from not possessing symbolic language, because it destroys actually the symbolism. It's kind of an idea that says, okay, you can create life only if you can create sculpture that is identical to the to the life form that you want to create, and then you just like do the puff, the magic, the magic foo of God. The God is like created the human supposedly from dirt, and then just using the air from his breath. The golem just woke up, and they woke up like this, and now you are alive. So, but this destroy the relation between the symbol and the thing, and the implication when you think that that's the only way that the neurons can create life. You actually, it stands on the false assumption that they do not understand symbolic language, that they can do amazing things, but they do not understand symbolic language, and that the only way to create a fly is that to paint it and then to sculpture it, and then eventually, like put like the air from their, metaphorical mouth that will raise or put the life juice or whatever inside the fly, which will make him like start to fly. But so now I think that this what I have now is that I understand that they have this symbolic language, and also I gained a little bit of experience with actual laboratory work with these things, and so I have, I think, better understanding and better like framework, both of theoretical one and empirical one, to understand what's really happening. What's really happening, I think, is that they can do both. They can create life and they can create sculptures, and they can also create like little machines or landscapes or gardens, and they can also create even like consumables, like pills, for example. Myself, I've also already consumed one. I did it like, it's a fast, that there was, during the corona, the FDA used or even invented, but certainly used a new, like an expedited process of of testing and certifying like new drugs. So I had it super expedited. Like one day, you hypothesize that they can create medicine as well, and the second you conduct all sorts of experiments with like how to teach them about all sorts of pills that you have, and how to, like, so they will know what's each pill, and the third day is to actually tell them to create like one of their friends, and then right away you jump to human experiment on yourself. But I think that the way that they create life is not at all, by creating sculptures. What they do actually is that they create life in a way that, I have no idea how it really works, like in the physical aspect. But I say what I see in my eyes. Like, no, I can't tell you about the chemistry or the physics that are involved. So they have like modes of operation, and when I speak about environments, my intention is to facilitate these modes of operations, or to like convince them, or to make them more comfortable of entering and staying in specific modes of operation. Now, when they create life, they usually, from what I've seen, what they do is that they create those snakes, like the water snakes or water worms or water snakes, and that's what And that's what they do. I mean, that's what they do. They create this stuff, and I don't know what happens when they grow up because I don't have enough. I mean, I have no experience with the grown creatures, even though I have some of them like in the scan that in my room or in the balcony. But I didn't have nearly have the opportunity or the time that is required in order to actually research, to conduct research on them, because it's a huge thing that, I mean, I'm doing so much, I mean, in parallel, and I barely sleep. So I mean, I didn't have, they're just there. I mean, and I don't know what really happens to them, because I can't even keep, like, I cannot even, I mean, take care of the basic stuff for them. So maybe they are dead or alive in hibernation, because, and but I just can't do everything all at once. And you know, there is the issue of my daughters and the issues in the criminal court and also family court, and like everybody's trying me. Everybody's, I mean, I'm also always guilty on all sorts of stuff that, I mean, happened only in the minds of psychos in the Israeli intelligence. So anyway, I don't have time to even observe and certainly conduct proper research about the grown creatures. But I don't know what, they maybe they developed all sorts of living organisms that, I mean, might not resemble at all the snake, the water snake, just as humans do not resemble their, I mean, embryonic form. What I think we saw in many slides that, I mean, that contains life forms, I suspect that they are actually sculptures like that, and I think that's, I mean, including this is true also for the fly, which is the most, I mean, amazing slide that I've seen. I mean, that I've spoken a lot about this kind of like, I call it the historic slide, because like you can see so much. I mean, I've showed it even to my daughter, to Orin, last evening, because she asked, and it was really amazing. I mean, I showed it over the phone because we can't meet, but I mean, using video WhatsApp. It really is amazing, and I think that what we see there is not actually the process of reviving a fly, but just creating a sculpture of a fly. That's it. And this is true for many other life forms that we saw, and also for other. I mean, they also create sculpture of all sorts of stuff. Perhaps even one of the DNA double coil. I mean, there is like an example, if someone remembers, and symbolic viruses and all sorts of like messages that I understand from the YouTube messages that Terran or Earth scientists, I mean, deciphered also all sorts of like crazy things from their messages, and I'm happy to hear about it, but I don't even have a clue. So it's a thing that they do. They create sculptures, and they have symbolic language, but it's not necessarily that they actually revive this, I mean, sculptures. The same is true about amoeba and viruses themselves. I'm sure that they can create viruses and amoeba, but I don't think necessarily that those that are created are the ones that we see, because maybe we've seen sculptures that are way bigger than like the original size, and they also create the actual creatures in the original size factor. Now, what they need? Question: what do they need in order to create life? There's actually another question. I mean, which I might not deal with now, because I mean I really need to rest a little bit. But there is the question of how do they multiply themselves, and what do they need in order to live themselves? But let's put it aside and let's ask, what do they need in order to create life? So after several theories that I hypothesized, but more importantly, I mean, quite a bit of experimentation, I can tell the following. In order to create life, first of all, it's kind of like a default state for them. It's not something special. They were designed to create life, and they do it in their naturally. But there are several things conditions that should be met, and first of all, they require light. And very interestingly, I'm not 100% sure about what I'm going to say now, but I'm pretty sure about it because it was demonstrated directly and indirectly in many experiments, not only one, but many experiments. I think I have a strong feeling that, I know it sounds weird, but I'm not completely sure about it, but I'm pretty sure about it, for certain they require light in order to create life. And I think that the light that is much more effective for them to create life, to be in life-creating mode, is light that comes in the direction which is identical or close to identical to the direction of the gravitation field that they exist in. Or in simpler words, light that comes from down, from below, is much more important for them, and in order to create life and to enter maybe for the creation itself, but certainly to get inside the mode of creating life. It's much more important light that comes from below than the light that comes from above or from the sides. Which is kind of weird. And I mean, what kind of creatures would expect light to come to arrive from the direction of the center of mass of the object that it exists on its gravitational field. Because usually, when you think about it, we tend to assume the opposite. We tend to assume that, as humans that evolved on Earth and we are used only to Earth, most of us. I've never been in any other place. I know that some of you have been visited other places, but not me. So humans, including myself, we are used to expect light to come from above or from the opposite direction of the center of mass of the object that that creates the gravitational field. Or in simpler words, we are used to stand on the ground, which is the surface of a very big planetary object, relatively big. Okay, it's all relative. For planetary object, and the center of mass of this object, or the center of the Earth, is the center of is the direction that gravity is. That the gravity vector is the gravity vector is a vector between us and the center of the Earth. Okay, that's what That's that's our main pulling objects. We are pulled towards the center of the Earth, and we are used to this kind of we were used to being pulled towards the center of the Earth, and we are so used to it that we actually defined the word down as towards the center of the object, and up as at the opposite direction. That's our definition of up and down. And on the other hand, we are used to get light, since forever, but including now, most of light that we even though, modern life is full of like artificial light, but still, all artificial light that humans create is nothing compared to what comes from the sun, which is, in our terms, it exists above us, because it exists we exist between, not just in the middle, but between the center of the earth and the center of the sun. So because we stand between the center of the earth and the center of the sun, it's not always true, but it's true when the sun is upon us. If the sun is on, if the sun, is on the other side, or if, of course, using the Talmudic, the geocentric definition, it's not really true, because it's actually that the earth moves. But if, like, from our point of view, the sun is the center of the of mass of the sun is if from our point of view, the center of the earth is in the middle, or in between us and the center of the sun, it means that it's night and we don't get any sunlight. We get sunlight only when the sun is we exist approximately between the center of the earth and the sun, and only then this is called morning or day, and only then we receive the sunlight, which is the major source of light. Since forever and still today. So the gravitational pull is in opposite to where we are used or expect to receive light from. In not only because we can always receive light from below or from the side, it can also happen, but it's not what we are used to. And what I think is that for the Neos, it's actually the other way around. They expect both gravity and light to come from the same direction, which is kind of weird. And I try to understand how it is possible, because one option is perhaps, it can happen if, for example, first, if they were not, if the source is not planetary at all, but but like something else, which is, it's very complicated to think about it, but it's a possibility that they were not meant to be, they were not created on any planet at all. Or perhaps, during a time that, planets don't even exist, I don't know. And if they were designed to, if their like natural environment is indeed a planet, and they were, designed to, operate on a planet, which is not necessarily true, as I said, but if you think that it is true, then such a planet could be a planet that is, I think, perhaps the planet lies very far from its star, far, out of the Goldilocks zone, and which means that it's a very cold planet, and that does not get any sunlight. Or perhaps like Venus is a planet that is relatively pretty close to its star, but the cloud layer is so thick that it gets very little flux, like very little sunlight. And on the other hand, there should be there should be like a light source that that is that comes from the planetary core, which is weird. I mean, it's kind of, how can it be? I don't know. This could be, I mean, first of all, it can only hypothetically happen if it's an aquatic planet, and if we speak about aquatic environment, or perhaps like aerobic, aerial environment. I mean, for land creatures like us, this would have been impossible, but because by definition there would be land, which is something that blocks light between you and the planetary core. So this could not be. I mean, if we imagine planetary environment as like the natural environment, it should be a very messed up planet with very little flux, probably as a result of thick clouds and large oceans and like some volcanic activity or something like that that shines light from the core of the planet. Now, without light at all, the neurons do not engage in creating life, which is sometimes good because you don't always want to create life. And I think that what they did in the freezer, because they worked very hard in the freezer, and I've seen it in many experiments, like it was again and again seen that when they're in the freezer, they work, they don't waste their time. But I think that they created sculptures, and even when they messed up, I mean, with things that seem to me like biological, like germs or microbes, viruses, and of course the flies and other bugs that I've dealt with, they all, I mean, I think that what they did was actually to create sculptures in their likeness or part of their likeness or likeness of part of it, but they didn't really they were not in the way of reviving those creatures because they were not in life creating mode. But now light and raw materials are enough for them to create life, but it's very difficult for them to do it. It's almost impossible. I mean, and the life that is created is very short-lived, because one thing is missing, which is very important, which is energy, and they cannot get all the energy from the light. Now, what I've seen in many experiments is that the best way to give them the energy that is required in order to create life and for the life to exist is using electricity, and specifically using, and I've tried several methods, but the one that worked the best for me was using direct current and doing it like, I mean, they do like in electrolysis, like creating, like putting like the two wires inside the pool of this, or the swamp, where things are developing, and where I put in the neos or the neo juice. And again, there must be like light and it's much more effective if light comes from below, which is possible if I use specific like glasses or plastic material that does not rest. Not all of it rests directly on the ground, but it like stands like on something, on like another compartment or or like a column that it stands on it, so lights can come from below. And if this is the case, then it's much easier for life to develop. But still, they need electricity, and when the electrolysis is in place and they have the raw materials and they have sunlight, life will be started to create almost immediately. Like, it's very, very quick. But when they are created, when the worms are created or the snakes are created, they are not created. I mean, it takes time for them to actually go to the large, like to adult, I mean, or young adult form, to form that is independent of the neurons around him, even though they contain neurons inside them. Because during the process of their creation, if I stop the electrolysis and like I stop electricity, then I mean all those that did not develop yet will gradually just die. Like they require electricity in order to develop. And possibly, I'm not sure about it because I didn't have time. I didn't have time to take care of the living of the terrarium with the living creatures. It's something that is required. Like I mean, it's so much work and to actually to learn things. You need to document it and to speak about it. And I just don't have time to do it. But possibly, the living creatures also require electricity. I don't know. But it sounds weird because it doesn't make much sense because it means that I mean how can it be like how can living creatures require like constant like not constant but like periodical charging with electricity? I mean, what natural environments could allow this to happen? I don't have a clue, and I'm not even sure it's true because in order to actually verify, I mean, to understand if this is the case, I need more time to look. I mean, to properly, I mean, conduct research on the living terrarium, and something that I didn't have the chance. But I can say that during the embryo, the gestation or the things, I mean, that is parallel to gestation, or during the time that the neurons actually create the life forms, you can see them like develop, and if you stop electricity, you can see them like dismantle or just break back into the to the swamp that they came from. Now I didn't check, and I need to, one of the things that I need to actually check is if what happens after they deconstruct, like they deconstruct into the swamp. And I have such at least two swamp like this right now on my table, maybe more than two, so I can test it. I mean, look in the microscope, under the microscope. I just didn't have the chance to see if the resulting like swamp, if it contains like the neurons that originally were inside the bodies of the creatures. So like can you reuse this kind of swamp to create like more life without losing efficiency or effectivity? You understand what I mean? The question is, what happens if I create life and in the middle I stop electricity and they all like they get back to the material that existed in the swamp in the beginning? Like, can we now again create life from it without losing losing the raw materials that we initially invested on the first like cycle of creating life? It's not trivial to test it, but I mean it's something that I can test. I mean, even in home environment, and it's interesting like to see where the energy or where the neuro was like going after the embryo is cancelled in the middle of creation. As I said, only light is absolutely required for life to be created, because even without life, even without electricity, life can be created, even though it's much more difficult, like considerably more difficult for it to occur. And when you charge the swamp with electricity, life almost immediately start to be created. So it's a huge difference. Now, when light does not exist, the neurons enter sculpturing mode. And I do not know yet, because I haven't tested it, if electrolysis help them or make their sculpting project more efficient or more effective. This is one of the things that we need to check. I don't know, but certainly it's not required in order for them to create sculptures, and they do it in great effectiveness even without electricity, and that is something that I've seen many times. That electricity helps specifically for life, but I'm not sure it helps at all, and it's certainly not required for the sculpturing and gathering projects and building projects. Okay, so it's this video became pretty long, and I'm very tired, so I'll finish now. But I have a lot of more things to say regarding the environments, and I hope I will continue this discussion soon. So bye for now, and have a great weekend.